Welcome to MamaFuel, the podcast that fuels every mama's heart, soul, mind, and body, and hopefully sparks a few dreams along the way. I'm Ann Ferguson, Chief Nurturer and Mama Mentor at the Centered Mama Project, and your host for this podcast. I'll be sharing real, raw, and often funny conversations with beautiful mamas from around the world to remind you that you're not alone and that you're doing amazingly on this wild journey of shepherding small humans as they make their way on our beautiful planet. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to today's episode of MamaFuel, the podcast. I am Ann Ferguson, your host, and today, like all the Mondays, I have a special treat for you in that I met not very long ago another amazing woman whose name I share, or who shares mine. We share each other's name, which is very exciting. And Sheybani is a person who stood out in a room of 600 people with her incredible smile and her sparkly eyes and an amazing energy that she radiates everywhere that she goes. And when I very first started talking to her and realized that, in a big shock to me, she was already a granny and has amazing kids and has lived all over the place, that she and her huge heart and amazing wisdom would be such a great addition to MamaFuel. So I cannot wait to introduce you to Ann, so I won't. Here she is. Ann, welcome so wholeheartedly to MamaFuel, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I just want to know how you respond to that kind of compliment. And I think I'm just going to say thank you.
Because, there it is.
Right? We have to learn to go thank you as opposed to, oh, no, really. It's not like that at all. Yes, it is like that. Thank you for noticing.
It is absolutely like that. Thank you. I received that. More, please. Yes. Yes.
Hello.
My daughter was telling me last night in the car, we went to a graduation ceremony at a special school that she attended for 2 years. And last year, when we left the school, it was her graduation, and she wept for 45 minutes on the floor of the school, wailing that she didn't want to leave because she wasn't quite ready. And then wept the whole way home, and wept once we were home, and wept the next day. It was very difficult for her. It was a choice that we had made. And this year we went to the graduation, and some of her besties were graduating, and we left, and we were in the car, tear-free. And we were in the car, and she said, you know, Mommy, people were telling me that I'm really tall, and usually I say, oh, no, not really. Meanwhile, she's a giraffe, right? And she said, and this time I just said, yeah. And I stopped and I thought, yes, this lesson is getting in when she's not even 11.
Oh my God, that's awesome. And 11, holy cow, 11-year-old on transition. You know, I had a boy and a girl, and I'm telling you, I used to think it's how you raise kids, but there is something to this girl-boy thing because I think my daughter cried for the first 4 years of her life. It's how she expressed. It's how she let off steam. And my son would be like out pretending he was going to go hunt buffalo. And I'm like, you're what? You're what?
How are you so different? So
how are you different?
Tell us a little bit about your life, because you're at a different phase of motherhood right now than most of the guests that I have on the show. So tell us what your life looks like.
So all of my I have 2 kids, and I also have 4 step kids, and step parenting, by the way, is a whole different sport. You know, and people my generation, I'm 55 right now, everybody talks about, oh, it's so sad to have the empty nest thing. And, you know, a lot of parents, you know, when you have teenagers, you don't worry about the empty nest caveat. There's a reason for that. But it's actually, the empty nest is something to look forward to in my mind. I would never take the whole child rearing thing away from myself. It was an amazing experience. But on the other side is it's a whole new life again. It's not the life you left off with when you had kids. It's a completely different life. And so my husband and I, we moved to rural Ireland. Our kids they're all launched, they're established. So we're not like, oh my God, they don't even know our address. What's going to happen if something happens to them? Maybe we should be thinking that way, but we don't. And it's we're at the stage where we have relationships with our kid. We pick up the phone and we, talk about somebody that they saw on YouTube or what they're doing at the grocery store, or you're still a parent, you're still interested, but they're so into their own life that you suddenly have the freedom to go, oh, all right, I don't have to obsess about that. What do I feel like doing? What do I want to do? And so next week we're off to climb Mont Blanc in France. And in August, we're going to Papua New Guinea to climb another silly mountain and scuba dive in Bali. And so for the first time, in my 20s, I didn't have money to do that kind of thing.
No.
And after taking care of kids' responsibility, all of a sudden, life opens up and my kids are my friends. Of course, I worry about them because we equate worry with love. But it's different. And I have a granddaughter now who's a year old, and I'll go to, they live in Mallorca, which is an island off the coast of Spain. By the way, you want your kids to marry people who live in great locations. Like Newark, New Jersey, they could be a great guy or a girl. Just tell them no. You go for the Mallorca.
An island somewhere.
An island that's really great in the wintertime. And, I fly in and I hang out for a couple of days and I think, I don't know how I survived that. It's exhausting. Being with a little kid, it's beautiful, but it's all consuming.
Yeah.
And you will be amazed at how disinterested you are at this stage of the game in being consumed by anybody but yourself. Selfish. You get to be selfish for the first time.
Yeah. And have you touched on a couple of things. You have the wherewithal to fulfill your dreams that when you were in your 20s, most of us weren't internet millionaires when we were in our 20s. I would posit that, in fact, very few are internet millionaires. Very few. Very few. So we have dreams and we have bucket lists, and some of us find amazing ways to do some of the things that we wanted to do. I moved to Europe when I was just 30. That's something I'd wanted to do. So there are ways of doing things for sure, but it isn't the same as what you've just, you're coming here. You'll be in my backyard, climbing Mont Blanc. It's right there. It's behind my climbing the Mont Blanc, and then you're going to Papua New Guinea, which how amazing is that? And then you're going to Bali, which is a place that some of our family wants to move to this afternoon. If I would say yes, totally. And you have this capacity to do these things, which when you are younger, you might not necessarily have the money to do it. And then when you have a family, most of us make choices to not fulfill those dreams and to not go to those places. Not everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think when you're in your 20s, which is, at least in my generation, most of us had our kids in our 20s. Like the idea was you finish college and then you start popping out babies. Like you had to get your 2.5 kids in before 30. And I came out of school wanting to do that, feeling like I got to get married. I got to start having kids. And I hadn't a clue who I was, what my dreams were, what I wanted. I wanted a kid because it was part of the formula. It was that drive to do that. I wanted somebody who would love me unconditionally. And if you have a kid over the age of 2, you know that's kind of like a very funny statement. And I thought,
ice cream, I love you.
Right. And I ended up marrying an Iranian and moving to Iran with an infant because I wanted adventure, and I could afford to do adventure by marrying somebody from a third world country that, has experienced 8 years of war. So yay me. And that's where I had little kids. I had little kids in the middle of, a very odd country, a really tough country to raise people. But, I wanted the travel, I wanted the adventure, and we find ways to do that. Yes. And let me tell you, this way now is so much better. It's so much better to do it this way.
Easier, I would imagine. And there is that piece of freedom that I question whether we have to give it up completely, because there is that cultural expectation still, I think, that you finish university and college and then you'll find a job, because that's the next thing, right? You find a job and you start climbing the corporate ladder, or if you're in an NGO, like so many here in Geneva are, you find whatever the career is and you launch on the career, and then probably late 20s, early 30s, you start having your babies, and then that's you set for the next 20 years. And I think more and more people are realizing, being a mother isn't pink bunnies, roses, and unicorn glitter all the time, or even much of the time. And that, and the conversations that are starting to happen, which is part of the reason that I wanted to launch MamaFuel, are around, actually, this doesn't fulfill me completely. Actually, I want to do other things. Actually, this is really boring.
Yeah.
Actually, my brain is atrophying because I'm not using it anymore. Actually, I don't want to have conversations at the school gates about what the teacher said and what the whatever. I seek fulfillment and other avenues for my whole being to expand, not purely the mothering side, which is so rich. It is rich. I'm not dissing it.
And it's hard and it's mind numbing. Yeah. It's having a few years on me. It's been interesting to watch the trends, because I graduated college in 85. And, there was that push to get married. There was this expectation because of where our mothers had been, that we were going to work and raise kids at the same time.
Because you could have it all.
Yeah. And it was assumed that that's what we were going to do. We were going to have a job. We were going to have kids all at the same time. Mm-hmm. And we were going to be going to the gym and look fantastic. So we were going to be good looking, have kids, and have a career. And I found that was, I didn't know how to do that, because if you treat your career like a job and you do daycare, maybe you can swing it. I'm watching this next generation, my daughter's generation. My daughter's going to be 29. And she came out of college and she wanted this big career. She was going to be in an NGO. She speaks like multiple languages. And she wanted to teach in the Middle East. And then she was pregnant. And she was saying, once the baby is born that summer, I'm going to go do this teaching gig in Yemen. And I'm like, oh, girl, you have no idea what you are in for. And she's at home with the baby now, and she's feeling the pressure to bring in money because it's a one-income family. And I'm seeing more and more young women just wanting to be home with their kids. And they're calling it, in some arenas, the trad wives, where they want to be home. They want to do the traditional life, probably my mother's generational life, without, understanding the pitfalls there. And I see them wanting to do that. And it's a response to my generation, where we're trying to swing it. We're trying to have careers. Their kids are, to balance that is next to impossible. And if I ever got a great piece of advice that I would share with people, it's this. Yeah, you can have it all, but not all at the same time. Mm-hmm. You do, however, 4 years at work, and then you spend 4 years at home with your kid at work, maybe have a part-time gig, and then you do another combo of it. But the idea of being freewheeling, high-flying in career and being a terrific mother at the same time, you will exhaust yourself. Mm. And I think you can have it all, not at the same time. Somebody gave me that advice years ago when I was trying to do it all and be it all, and weeping all the time because I was always coming short somewhere. And there's time, it's like I'm 55, the time to be going to Bali and Papua New Guinea is great now. To take a 2-year-old there would have been a nightmare. Not the right time. And it's like watching your kids go through learning phases and stages. They keep changing and they're not staying the same way. And when they evolve, it opens up more space for you to do this, or it takes away some of that space. You got to go back home and deal with 13-year-olds or whatever you have to do. It's, this superwoman stuff is crap.
It is totally crap. And I'm very happy to see that more and more, certainly on the Instagram profiles that I follow, and I try to follow broadly across different cultures and different backgrounds and histories for the individuals that I follow. But there seems to be, and I'm getting a little bit hopeful around it, is that there seems to be a movement towards saying it as it really is. And there was recently, at time of recording, there was a challenge called Imperfect Boss. And it was all around women being imperfect and just saying, one woman, randomly, the thing that stuck in my head was one woman had a little Post-it, and there's this picture of just her hand on the Post-it saying, I have a sex addiction and I've been addicted for 7 years and I finally started getting help in January. And someone else, and then she talks about it. And then someone else saying, I get really impatient with my team sometimes and it makes me a really not nice boss. And someone else, so it's happening, I think, in different arenas, because it's also starting to happen in the mothering arena, where people, we were talking before we started recording, like Glennon Doyle talks about motherhood being brutal. It's beautiful and brutal at the same time. And it is like, it's, there are times in our mothering where we feel like we've finally achieved the almost unachievable, like a great day and everybody got along and they all got fed great food and the house is clean and great. And in my life anyway, as a mostly solo mama with a husband who I was just talking to him before we came on, and he said, what do you think about my travel schedule? Yada, yada. And I said, what? I just function on the basis that you are not here. And if you are here ever, it's a bonus. So kind of doesn't matter when you book your flight to go to that place, because actually I just am operating on,
you have to,
on the underlying, the assumption that you're not here. And he is here as often as he possibly can be. And he's a very engaged and involved dad, which is great. And most of the time he's not here. So for me, the idea of sustaining those almost unachievable days of,
oh my God,
I'm wrecked just thinking about it. Never mind trying to do it.
If I had raised my kids during the social media era, I would have had to off myself. Because if you look at Instagram, if you look at Facebook, everybody's got the adorable baby and the doting daddy who goes to daddy and baby play groups. And, you would look at your spouse and you would say, you bum. And you would be like, your kid's covered in egg. I mean, I didn't have that particular pressure, and I definitely would have felt pressure. I think that is, that is rough stuff for your generation and the younger women. It's because we are so, we are so judged, our mothering, who we are as mothers. You want to get a woman, you poke her there, you criticize her there. I mean, we are all so judged by our cohorts and by society in how we do this parenting thing. And by the way, there's no one right way. If you're feeding your kids and they're emotionally stable, you've done an amazing job, gold star on your forehead. But you look at media and you're only going to feel like a failure and horrible. I'm so grateful I didn't have that.
Yeah. Definitely it's one of the reasons that I created the Centered Mama Project and this podcast is that there is such a level of curation of content on Instagram, on Facebook, anywhere. Every single thing that we post and that we put out there is crafting the public face. In one of the early podcast episodes, I spoke to a woman named Edie Hoffman, who is phenomenal. And she works with seniors who have forms of dementia and Alzheimer's. And so she works with them to put things back on their bucket lists and to live their best life while they're here. And she was talking about how the number of calories that are actually expended in putting forward that public face, and that when we come home, we're able to drop that. And it's when the kids melt down, and it's when we get a bit snappy because we're finally home. And it's when, all of that, the scaffolding that we spend so much time holding up all around us can just drop away. But when it seeps into, the life, for everyone who's not watching on video, because you can on YouTube, but how many of us, like I'm alone with my kids often, most times, most evenings. And in Geneva, it's $25 an hour for a babysitter. So
is it? That's crazy.
That's how much you pay a cleaner too.
What?
So we don't have a cleaner anymore because I think it's important for all of us to do the cleaning together. And it's
hello.
All the rest. But I don't go out very often, because it's $25 an hour. So I can go and sit on my front step, and for $100, I can literally sit on my front step for 4 hours, and it already cost me $100. So we spend a lot of time in here, in the phone, right? And when you're in this phone and you're looking at Instagram at night, and what you see are these, really curated, to me, very unreal profiles, it does, no matter how confident you are, it will knock you in some way. And that there are two pieces to what you just said to me. One is the judgment from the outside, and the other is the even worse judgment from the inside. And what happens on the inside is, the inside job is the worst. And that's what my whole entire mission is to change the way that we treat ourselves first. And that would be enough. Just change the way that we treat ourselves as mothers, and then change the way that we treat each other. Because I noticed even with Carolina, my first, I was living in Spain, in Barcelona, when I was pregnant with her. And people used to comment in the street. So they would say, congratulations, or, oh, look at, they would literally walk by and say out loud, oh, look at her. Isn't she oh, look at the chubby one. Or like, they don't mean it in a nasty way, but.
Oh, I know.
But, there's that very social, outgoing, I'm sure your daughter has lived this too, like that culture of, as soon as I'm pregnant, there is a degree of appropriation of my pregnant body by other people. They come and touch me. I've never seen them before. They're touching my belly. As soon as I had a baby, they would be shoving their fingers in her hands. I would be wearing her. She'd be in the stroller, and they'd be like holding her hand. People I'd never seen before. And I was like, hand sanitizer. Oh my God. Really anxious mama. And that judgment piece kicks in, and you want so badly to do things well. You want so badly to do things right for your baby, and to not make what you felt to be mistakes that your parents made, right? You don't want to make the same mistakes that your mama made. And it starts from, I think I was maybe 4 weeks pregnant, maybe 6. And I started spotting on a train. I had just gone to tell my husband-to-be that he was about to become a dad again, because he has a much older son. And I called him from the toilet of the Eurostar going back to London, sobbing because I was spotting. And I thought, what did I do wrong? I did something wrong.
Yeah.
And I hadn't even had her yet. She wasn't even here. She was a bean, literally. And that guilt, and what have I done? And is she going to stay? And, suddenly the whole world turns on its head, and it doesn't have to be that way, because we're all just doing our best.
Yeah. I mean, we are so hardwired to take on that guilt. And the worry, and the pervasive, how are we supposed to save our kids? Everything in us is hardwired to protect them from pain, to protect them from, we want them to survive. And I'm thinking about 3 things at once, which is why I'm stuttering. But when my generation started raising kids, the biggest mistake we did as a generation, in response to our own parenting, our mother's generation, is we thought that we should make the home super safe and really a comfortable place to be. And they should never have to be, do chores, because we want them to come and feel like, the place was where they could come and just feel tension free. And we would take the chores away from them. We would do it for them because we wanted to make their life sweet. We wanted to make it easy. And if they complained, we would try to fix it for them, because God forbid your kid should be upset. And we took away the consequences of their actions. We didn't let their actions play out in a natural way. If they didn't do something because they got used to it being done for them, we would step in and prevent punishment or prevent any sort of consequences. And we did that out of love. We did that as a way of responding to, we didn't like the way our parents made us work or didn't explain things to us or whatnot. And you have the experience of a few years out, and all of a sudden, you see how those seeds, you see what happens now that those seeds are grown. And the hardest lesson I had to learn, and it was all of that stuff was guilt. All of that was, what is it to be a good mom? What is it to take care of your kids? The hardest lesson I had to learn is you can't save your kids. You're not saving your kids. And all of that guilt and all of that worry is such a waste of time, because you can't control everything. My kid's dad got sick. We'd gotten divorced. He got sick. He was sick for 2.5 years and he died. And through that experience, I remember just like scrambling. How do I keep my kids from feeling this? How do I keep it okay for them? What can I do? How can I buffer that? And it was a great experience for me in that I learned, girl, take your fingers off and stop with the guilt and stop with the worry, because you can't protect them from
grief
and natural consequences of actions. And you're managing and protecting these little beings, but they've got their own journey that they're going to go on. It's different than yours. You do your best, and then you let, you give it up to God or whoever, and trust that you're doing your damnedest. Trust that you don't have to be mired in guilt and worry, that as if that shit will protect them.
Yeah. I was listening today in the car as I was driving back from, ironically, an appointment with my oldest daughter's teachers. So school is finished at time of recording just 2 days ago. Driving back from an appointment with her two teachers, the special needs coordinator at the school, a language therapist that she sees outside of school who's incredible, and a master's student who I hired to come into the school to give her specialized language lessons, because her teacher just couldn't be two people at the same time, right? She couldn't teach Carolina at her level and teach the class at the level they were at because of her absence from school for 2 years for everything that had been French language. We had her remediated for dyslexia in English, and it was incredible, but it meant that she missed grammar and language and all that stuff in French because she's in a bilingual school. And so it was the end of year meeting to talk about her progress, which has been extraordinary. But that progress happened because she busted her butt. And she had really hard experiences, and she felt all those feelings, and she was taken out of class to see this master's student who I found. I went to the university, spoke to their coordinator, convinced them to let me put out a job ad, interviewed some people to see the person that would be the best fit for her with the highest chance of her actually connecting to her. Did all of the things, and I remember like having that energy of I'm going to figure this out. We're going to get there, and she does have special learning needs that are not met in the school. And I, as a parent, am incredibly lucky that I live in a very wealthy country. I have the means. I have the capacity. I have always been, you give me, well, at the time you give me a phone and a phone book and I can figure anything out. Now you just give me my fingers and the computer and I will find a solution to just about every single problem. I think I've only been stumped twice. in the 11 years of parenting that I've done so far. Long may it continue. But it's the output of that energy. And in the car, they were having on the Swiss National Radio, they were having a conversation with a risk expert. And he was saying how the question was, why do we have so many rules? Why do we have so many rules in our lives? Why are our shampoos so regulated? Why is all of this stuff so regulated? And he was saying that what often happens is that when there are crises, we as humans tend to demand greater regulation, greater rules and changes in laws because it makes us feel like we have some measure of control and are safer. And he said, actually, what they have found is that when things are over-regulated, then it becomes so constraining that human ability no longer has a role because it can't, because there's nowhere for it to turn. So he gave the example of the tugboat pilots in I want to say The Hague, but that doesn't feel right. In any case, there's a huge port, and these tugboats that bring these international freighters, in and out of this port, they wanted new sets of regulations. The captains of this whole organization wanted to create certain regulations because there had been some close calls with some of these huge ships, and the pilots were like, "You guys, if you impose, you can give us guidelines, but what happens when there isn't any other way to do it but that way? It's going to cause an accident if we don't do it this way, even though it's not the best. It's the only way we can do it." And so they've created guidelines, but not laws and not rules. And I think that really speaks to what you're saying, that we as moms, we as humans think that rules and constraints and limitation of potential danger keeps people safer. But I, as a super, super, super anxious mama, have prevented my kids from doing things when they were younger, but very quickly realized that that's how I grew up. Like I literally can still hear, with all of the love that she has still and had for me, my mom going, "No, you can't. Be careful. You might." And so I let my kids climb trees. I let my kids climb up on walls. I let my kids literally climb walls. Like I let my kids do things that have my mama's heart and throat clenching, because they're going to do it anyway. And I want them brave and out there and trying stuff. Yeah. But it's not easy.
Yeah. And I look at all of the regulations that you're talking about, and they're 10x what I saw when my kids were younger. I mean, my rule was you can't go to the mall until you're 16 by yourself, because somebody in a panel van is going to kidnap you and wrap you in electrical tape and stab you 67 times. And my kids would repeat that mantra. It's like that was going to happen. That was what was going to happen. But I look now, and I thought, they joke about that, how excessive I was. But you can't walk down the road without everything being policed, without all of these, this is how you have to do it. You have to follow the guidelines, the rules. You got to, in the States, I'm looking at, how teachers conduct classes. They've got to have, if in case a gunman comes in the school, here's what you have to do. And all of the systems in place are designed to protect the students in the event that happens. And it translates everywhere. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, it is so hard to accept that we are mortals.
Yeah.
And that our kids are going to get hurt. They're going to break a leg. And maybe because my husband was a criminal defense attorney, he says it this way: they're going to get arrested. They're going to go fly in a Lifestar helicopter to the hospital. And he's got these, if it hasn't happened yet, it will happen yet. These things will happen. And, I don't know if I would go that far. But if you prevent your daughter from experiencing upset, if you try to step in and make it okay that she's got to be taken out of class and do the special tutoring and kind of try to convince her it's okay, what we are teaching our kids is the worst lesson possible, which is to be upset or frustrated or sad is unacceptable. And the world has to somehow make it better for you. And so they're like, they think those emotions and going through that is bad. And they also are looking for outside rescue, for the world to make it better. Let her feel upset. Like, I hear you. It's upsetting. I don't blame you. And it's what we got to do. Cry away, babe. Cry away, because I got your back and we're taking care of the problem, and it's okay to feel this way. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And it's that, I think it's that natural instinct, isn't it, that we all have to try to spare our loved ones discomfort. And it's what your generation, it sounds like, wanted to do. You didn't want your kids to have to feel constrained or like they had to do stuff they didn't want to do with chores and all that kind of stuff. But the question really is, what kind of humans are we growing? And it's a conversation that I have often with my husband, who is an incredibly loving, incredibly participative, present dad who is very disciplined, incredibly efficient. And when he's home, like, we can literally all sit on the sofa and he'll just do all the things. Like, he will do all the things. And when he kind of re-enters, have moments of friction where I'm like, dude, yeah, she forgot her snack. She's not having a snack then because she didn't make it. It's her job to make her snack. Well, but I can't do that because she's got to eat. She doesn't have enough for breakfast. And I go, you can actually, because it's her responsibility. And
she'll be fine. She'll be fine without some food.
And she'll just have a bigger lunch and she'll just remember it tomorrow. And it's that, constant balancing, and perhaps untraditionally in our case, I'm the one stepping back and going, I'm not doing all the things. I'm just not. Why? Because when I do all the things, I feel so resentful. And so in a way, I'm organizing my life so that I don't have to feel resentment, right? Which is
on you.
Interesting.
It's on you. That emotion is on you.
Right? That emotion is on me. But at the same time, I also want to make sure that my kids are independent enough, even at almost 9 and 11. I mean, gosh, in some cultures, 11-year-olds are looking after all the babies, they're all their younger siblings. In this case, we don't have any more. So there's the 11-year-old almost and the almost 9-year-old, and they can pack their lunch and they can clean their room and they can vacuum the house and they can do. Is it all they do? Absolutely not. Is it something they can do, on a daily basis with a snack? Yes. And vacuum for half an hour a week?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is.
Super smart. Super smart. And it's nice to see that that's coming back, that's in style again. Because we didn't do it, and it impacted our kids' lives. And I don't like the word entitled, because I don't think that's what it is. I think the word entitled should be replaced with the word confused. The confused is, where's the person who's going to come in and take care of this? Because they don't know. They don't know to get up and do it for themselves. And whose fault is that? I mean, if you want to assign blame, which is futile.
Not helpful. Yep.
Yeah, not helpful. It's just, it's, I think when you give your kids chores, when you let them know you can handle this task, you can make muffins, or you can go up and order, a tea from the vendor. I'm watching. You give them independence. You give them a sense that they can operate in the world, that they can affect change, that they can do for themselves. That is a huge gift. It's huge to everyone.
It is. And living in Switzerland, I have a dear friend who lives in Basel, so in the Swiss German part of Switzerland, and we're in Geneva, so in the Francophone part, for people who don't know. There are 3 zones. There's an Italian-speaking area, there's the French-speaking area, and then there's the Swiss German, which is the predominant language, and also the largest part of the country. And so there really is a culture of independence in kids, in in Swiss life. So kids walk to school alone, age 6, 7, 8. Like they start really young, like even 4, because they start school at 4. They will go to school alone. And we are still struggling with getting our 11-year-old to go with her 9-year-old sister to the grocery store because she's scared. And she has felt our anxiety, and she's not willing to do that yet. It's a bit of a distance, and you've got to go through this little valley and get up the other side. Like it's not a straight shot 2 blocks down the road. But if they have a phone with them, or we have walkie-talkies, or we can, there are things we can do to make that happen. And it's very much to do with the culture you grow up in. And I think the North American culture, if I can lump Canada in with the US.
We consider Canada the 51st state, which is really obnoxious, but it's how
it is really obnoxious.
It's really obnoxious. I know. Canadians don't feel the same way.
No.
America is like, yeah, it's just the other state.
Not. Totally
I
not.
know.
But there is that, when I came to live in Europe, I remember my husband, our first Christmas, he took me to Cordoba. And there is an old fort there. And I was pregnant, so my hormones were, first trimester, my hormones were all over the place. And I was feeling a bit sick and all. Anyway, so we go to this amazing, what used to be an amazing hotel, which is perhaps not quite as amazing as it was before, but it's still a beautiful, luxurious place. And we're in this fort. And he takes me up onto the ramparts of the fort. I am freaking out. There's a personality, a little character called Elmer the Safety Elephant in Canada. And Elmer the Safety Elephant always has the instructions on how to keep yourself safe. And I was like, dude, Elmer would have a field day here. Like, where are the barriers? And what if I fall over? And what if I... And there is that degree of lack of faith in humanity's...
In common sense.
And common sense, right?
Common sense.
Kids want to survive. They want to be okay. Like, sure, they'll do stuff that puts them in danger. But my parenting coach is forever saying to me, your kids don't want to get hurt. Your kids don't want things to happen to themselves. Like, you got to trust that common sense is there. Because if you teach it out of them, it's harder to get it back, I think, later.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I think, I see that in Ireland too. We'll go to the Cliffs of Moher, which is this big tourist spot, which, it's a beautiful spot, but why do you want to be amongst tourists? And there's these enormous cliffs with no barrier. So you could walk right up to it if you want. And the American in me goes, oh my God, somebody is going to die. And I'm looking around waiting for either the guards or the police or what. And it's common sense. Don't go over the cliff. Do people die? I suppose, but you get in the parking lot and drive out and somebody has a heart attack or gets hit by a car, they die that way too.
Yeah, for sure.
So I do think it's over. We are surprised when people die or get hurt because we think that everything is in place to prevent that from happening. And it's an illusion.
Yes. And what you said earlier about the amount of energy that we expend and time and worry that we kind of froth ourselves up into states of worry, and the time that we spend thinking about things, it doesn't actually help.
Yeah. It's instinct too.
Yeah.
I think we should give ourselves a little bit of a break because we feel these things. We are hardwired to be this way. And it's thinking things through, it's breathing, it's just recognizing its instincts kicking in. How do I want to be? What do I want? What do I want for my kids? How do I put systems into place so I can, override this stuff? You get to plan a lot of it, and the other, you just have to kind of give it over to the stuff you can't control.
Yeah. Which is most things. So I have 2 more questions for you. One is, if you could go back and speak to yourself when you were a mama of 2 little ones, what would you say to Anne from back then?
I would say, be here now. And stop worrying about being so fabulous, or stop worrying with trying to keep up with where you perceive everyone else to be, because all of those things you want, there will be time for it. And I have a friend who says, bloom where you grow. And I think if you're feeling like you missed out on a big career move, if you missed out on some great trip, your girlfriends are all going to tour Southeast Asia and it's too difficult to do that with a little kid, don't do it. Don't push it to keep up. Don't try to keep up with anybody. Just be there now. And in the moment when the time is right, guaranteed you'll know it. And then you make different choices. Then you take advantage of different opportunities. And don't try to be superwoman.
I love that. It also makes me think of looking back. Something that someone said to me at one point was, you made the best decisions you could make with the information you had available to you at the time. So love yourself for making all of the decisions, whether they turned out to be good or not, because you were doing your best.
You will make mistakes, guaranteed. You will make mistakes and look back and go, oh my God. And you can't not.
Because human, right? We're human.
You can't not make a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah. So you might as well follow your heart and your
Do your best. Do your best.
Yeah. And some days your best is that you managed to get out of bed and fed all the people, and then you got back into bed at the end of the day. Like, that's already winning.
I also like the fact that you have a parenting coach, because if you know you can do better, and you know that there's information out there or really good advice out there, and you're struggling, therapy was for my generation. Coaching is for your generation. Do not hesitate to get an outside professional perspective.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't be without it. Would not be without Leslie at all. I think she's episode number 4. I need to have a list beside me when I'm recording these podcasts. So, last question, which is the answer to which will be different now than it would have been 26 years ago, let's say. But where do you get your MamaFuel?
Where did I get my MamaFuel? It's a good question. I think the MamaFuel came from what it was that I wanted, which was to create an amazing family, to have kids who felt loved and felt secure, and who had that stability, the very stability that I didn't think I had growing up. And so I think when people complain about their childhoods, it's silly, because it really is the boot camp of life. That boot camp, that experience of being an unhappy kid made me a terrific mother. It made me want to do for my kids and create something that I didn't have. Did that create other troubles for them? Yeah. But was that the fuel for me to, put everything into them? Yes. That's what I wanted. I wanted that for them.
What about for you?
For me, I was horrible at finding the energy and the time for me, because I was easy to dismiss my needs and my desires and put my kids' needs and desires ahead of myself. I didn't have that understanding. I was very all or nothing. I think I had that chicken back mentality that once you have kids, your job, the mother rule I had is you give your kids the good meat and you eat the back, the chicken back. And if I could point one thing out to the audience, is you don't want to do that.
No. Because
you talk about resentment building and you get that martyr complex going. Like, after all I have done for you,
that they never asked you to do in the first place.
They never asked you to do that. And so I think I lacked a lot of balance then. And I paid a price, and I have found great balance now. And I think it's for those of you who don't feel balanced, find some. Because if you're feeling it, it only gets worse.
And it's coming out too, right? If you're feeling it
comes out sideways.
Coming out in ways that you don't even know. And
passive aggression. And it does. It just comes out. And that's how you want to ruin a marriage. It's a good way to ruin a marriage, because giving your all to in my case, it was 2 kids. It was an act of love. It was what I thought one did. And it was a disservice to them. It was a disservice to me, because I became resentful and murderous and all that, look at what I did for you. I bleed.
Yeah.
And it's destructive to a marriage.
For sure. There's nothing left.
Yeah. Nothing left.
Yeah. Nothing left for the marriage, and nothing left for you either. Right.
Yeah. I'm astounded that more marriages don't collapse. So if you've got a healthy marriage in that mix,
you're winning.
You're winning.
Winning. Well, here's to healthy marriages and to winning all over the shop. I'm so grateful that you came on to talk about all the life stuff, because you talk a lot about all of your business stuff.
Yes, all the time.
All the time. And I appreciate you coming with your wise mama's heart and sharing the things that you've learned along the way, and that you have had the time now to reflect on, because you're in a different phase now. Now you're in the I get to do stuff for me phase.
Yeah.
It looks
really fun.
From here.
Really fun. Do not enjoy your kids when you have it. It's so cliche. And your times, and there are multiple times, will come.
Yeah. And I also think that it doesn't have to be all or nothing, right? Like there are more and more mamas. Like I have gone and done yoga teacher trainings, and I have my kids for a week. I know women who go and do girlfriends weekends once a quarter or twice a year. And I think the more we're able to not wait, and we do those things now, and we find ways to make them happen, be they leaving our kids with some friends so that you can have a weekend with your husband. I did that not too long ago. Each of the girls went to a different friend's to sleep over, and we had a staycation at home, but the rule was no chores, no talking about chore things. We went out on the lake on a boat. We had sushi. We biked around town, but it was a choice, right? To do that, because I know that if I wait another 10 years to attend to my marriage, there will be none left.
That's an excellent clarification. And when I say that time will be right for certain things, I'm talking about you don't have to be the vice president of the company, and you don't actually have to go back for your MBA. You don't have to go back to get a degree when you've got little kids and a job, or to hike across Europe for 2 months. You don't have to do it, but you do not want to put your life on hold, and you do want to go and make time for yourself and for your marriage and have some fun. If you don't insert that, it's gross.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not how you want to live your life. And I think, the very concept of balance is one that is a bit difficult to achieve and elusive. I don't think that balance is possible every day. Just like how we started off this conversation, and it's a great place to end as well. That we can have it all, just not necessarily at the same time, and that's okay. And that we are all. The beautiful expression, I don't know where it comes from, that we are all just walking each other home. Like there's nobody else coming for us. This is it. And so to care for ourselves, you were saying, bloom where you're planted, grow as best you can in that place where you are. Be the best mom you can be with the resources you have, the money you have, the time you have, the energy you have. Be the best human you can be in every tiny way, as often as you can, because you're not going to do it all the time, and that's okay. Yeah. Give yourself a break.
Yeah.
Love yourself. I'm so glad that you came on and that you joined us for MamaFuel. And thank you so, so much for being such a lovely guest. And you are also, in addition to being a mama and a grandmother and lots of other things besides, you also have an amazing business where you help people birth their literary babies into the world.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's fun. Yeah.
Yes. And we can maybe have you on a different time to talk about that. But I did just want to say that you are the author of a book wonderfully called
How to Eat the Elephant, Build Your Book in Bite-Sized Steps.
I love it. I love eating the elephant. I wanted to tell my kids about it the other day, but I knew my littlest one would be like, why would you want to eat an elephant?
I know. That's me. That's me.
Such a good resource. So I will link to your website in the show notes in case anyone has a book in them that is dreaming to be born. And it's just a great resource. So thank you for coming and joining me to talk about all the life stuff and none of the work stuff. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That's it for today's episode of MamaFuel, the podcast. Thanks for listening. There's a lot more conversation, sharing, and real mama talk happening in our private Facebook group. To join us, go to www.thecenteredmamaproject.com/Facebook and make sure you say hi when you get there. If you like this episode, or if you know a mama who could use a little mama fuel, I'd love you to share this episode and to rate and leave a review. Every comment helps, and it is always a delight to hear from you. Thanks, and bye for now.